comes to the compound and they say, again, call Baca to the sergeant's office. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm getting in trouble. I show up, the Secretary of Corrections is there, and he goes, are you the one cutting my sergeant's hair? And I said, yeah, it was me. I'm sorry. He left his post. I'm the one I kept. I didn't finish in time. He went back late, and he goes, go ahead and pack all your stuff. No problem. I'm going to the hole. Go back, pack all my stuff. No, he has me go and get into his actual truck, in an actual truck with no cuffs, takes me to the street to central office, which is never allowed to even be done. And I go over there, and he has me build him a personal barber shop.
Before we dive in, it's important to remember that the information we provide is for informational purposes only. Every situation is unique, and decisions regarding your health or legal matters should be made after consulting with your own doctor or lawyer. Our aim is to inform and empower, but personal circumstances require personalized advice. Hi, welcome to another edition of Justice in Scrubs. I'm attorney Richard Hastings, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Dr. Jeff Michaelis.
And today we have a fascinating guest with us in TJ Baka. Welcome to the program, TJ.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't you start off and tell us your story?
Yeah, guys, I ended up moving from California to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I ended up going to prison in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I ended up doing 1,827 days in the Department of Corrections, and I actually learned how to cut hair while I was over there.
So let me back up in your story, and because I find this part fascinating. You went to prison, and that's, I think you told me earlier, 5 years, 8 months?
Yeah, so I went to prison for 5 years, 8 months, which is the 1,827 days. My initial sentence was 1 to 10 with a 5-year cap, meaning that I got the full 10 years. I did the 5 years in prison, and then I still had to do 5 years of probation when I got out. Ran concurrent with 2 years of parole.
And why were you in prison? What did you do that got you there?
Unfortunately, aggravated battery, armed robbery, and kidnapping with a firearm enhancement.
And how old were you when that occurred?
I was 21 years old.
Wow.
Making bad decisions, guys.
And that's, I mean, every single person that's in your situation, it comes down to that.
That's right. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Wow. And you know, the other thing that's interesting is, and we just met with a young man last night who's had some problems with the law, and it's a result of the people that he's hanging around with. And last night we had this activity that we did, and he was a completely different person, and it's a result of who you're hanging around with.
That's right.
So you go to prison, and then what job do you get while you're there?
I go to prison, and they try to place me in the kitchen in the beginning. I refuse the kitchen, and then they tell me, as a punishment, you'll be going to segregation. The warden came in and said, hey, man, you're not a gang member. How come you don't want a program? What do you do? And I said, I cut hair. And he goes, well, there's a set of clippers over there. Let's create you a detail. And he made me a barber. And so unlicensed barber, but a barber nonetheless. And when we sanitized with Barbicide, we had sanitization sheets that we did in there every day. And, it was very professional.
And when you told him you cut hair, you weren't a barber. You just...
Well, when I told him I had cut hair for 8 months in the county jail prior to my prison sentence. I had to spend, while I was locked up in the county before I went to prison, I had spent about 8 to 9 months there, and I was actively cutting hair.
And the reason you were cutting hair there is because you told people there that you cut hair, but you really didn't cut hair.
I made a fib, and this is what happened. I got into county jail before all the sentence happened and everything. I got in there. I got into the pod. I had diarrhea of the mouth. Told one of the guys, hey, man, I'm a barber. And lo and behold, one morning, the clippers come in. And I'm like, oh, my God. I'm already, soiling my pants. I was like, oh, my God. And all of a sudden, the biggest cholo in the pod comes over, and he's first for the haircut. Signs his name up there and says, I want to fade. And I was like, oh, shit. And so, I cut his hair. I don't know I think I'm probably going to get beat up today. I cut his hair. I didn't know if he liked it or not. And he came back and he threw 2 items of commissary, which is like food or store within the jail. And he put that down as like letting me know that he liked the haircut.
Wow.
So you just, I know you just figured out what a fade was, or you just played with it, or you just.
One time at the age of 14 in California, the neighborhood kids, we grew up poor, the neighborhood kids said, hey, I want you to cut my hair. And so I said, they designated me as the person that was going to cut hair. So I'd done about 4 haircuts. That's why I'd said I was a barber, but no, really had no experience.
And you just picked it up, or you just learned about it, or you studied about it?
I have barber blood. And so I'm telling you, I don't play. Look, I have barber blood, and there's something about me where I have the power. And so for me, I showed up, and I just, it runs in my blood. It was something that I was destined to do.
So you just used that skill that you learned in prison, and then you want to talk about the next phase?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I honed that skill for 1,827 days for 10 cents an hour. That's why I say that I'm part Chinese. And so I did that. And once I did that, when I got out, my ears, I also have the cauliflower. I started doing mixed martial arts. I couldn't get a job. Shout out Diego Sanchez with the UFC. He told me...
Diego Nightmare Sanchez?
Yeah, I'm his barber.
Really?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
Without a shred of a doubt. Shout out to Diego Sanchez. Shout out to Donald Sanchez and all the other guys that I cut their hair.
Wow.
Yeah, Diego told me one day on the mat and said, hey, man, my last fight was King of the Cage 2012, an amateur fight, never got paid, never made $1 off MMA. Had 6 fights, didn't get paid once. And Diego said, hey, man, you're the best barber in Albuquerque. You should really get your barber license. And I just didn't think it paid. And one day I went to this barber shop in Albuquerque, and I had a buddy that owned a shop and said, hey, man, wanted me to sit back and play Cinderella. Well, Diego went to the UFC fight, and they all went out there. I sat back, and guess what? I made $300 that day. I had no money to my name. I thought it was $3,000 that day. And I was like, I'm going to be a barber.
So let me go back to your time in prison. So on average, how many haircuts a day would you do?
They're not going to believe it, but honestly, the most average, you asked a question, I'd say about 28 to 30.
Wow.
I do 15 a day now on the street, meaning, and you're making over $1,000 a day. Just to give you an idea financially wise now, like, over $1,000 a day.
So you're in jail and you're doing 28 haircuts a day.
Yeah.
And I would imagine you're kind of like royalty in the jail in that you're performing a service that people want, and if you do a good job for them, then they're going to be appreciative. So does that gain you like some type of status where people aren't going to harm you, or? You're
a smart man. Yeah, it does, but it also created something even better than that. Yes, it created a force field. I used the Jedi mind trick, and but I also created art. Yes, it had me to where I had a status to where, look, I did something really famous in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that if anyone's from Albuquerque that's watching this podcast, the governor actually reached out to me. They wanted me to sit on the board of Corrections Industries. They wanted me to do, I'm not going to mention what they wanted me to do. We're in the midst of building a barbershop. I work with the Parole Department of Corrections now. What that fame in prison had me do was the Secretary of Corrections, a sergeant one day walked in, and we're not allowed to touch, it's like we have leprosy. You cannot touch a guard. It's not supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. And he walked in and he sat down, the sergeant, and goes, and I was like, oh shit, he wants me to cut his hair. I don't have leprosy. Put a cape around him, put a neck strip on him, gave him that haircut. He loved that haircut. Every single cop in that compound came into the barbershop, and I was cutting hair until about 2 a.m. And I cut everybody's hair. And then the next day they came in and the sergeant goes, hey, call Baca to the office. And I came in and he goes, no more inmates hair. He goes, you're made a new badge. It said staff barber.
Really?
Then it gets better. The Secretary of Corrections, shout out to Joe Williams, because I'm going to say it all. Shout out to Joe Williams, who was the Secretary of Corrections in 2005. He comes to the compound and they say, again, call Baca to the sergeant's office. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm getting in trouble. I show up, the Secretary of Corrections is there, and he goes, are you the one cutting my sergeant's hair? And I said, yeah, it was me. I'm sorry. He left his post. I'm the one I kept. I didn't finish in time. He went back late, and he goes, go ahead and pack all your stuff. No problem. I'm going to the hole. Go back, pack all my stuff. No, he has me go and get into his actual truck, in an actual truck with no cuffs, takes me to the street to central office, which is never allowed to even be done. And I go over there and he has me build him a personal barbershop. And then I was really in with the, with the people at that point in time. I really built a big name amongst law enforcement.
So I want to go back again because the part that I find especially fascinating is being in prison and then how everything works within the prison. So I would imagine that there are gangs there, are there not?
Absolutely.
So you're cutting all of the gang members' hair from different gangs?
Yeah.
So you're friends with competing gang members?
So I'm friends with gang members that are competing amongst themselves because I'm not from a gang.
Right.
But yes. So it would be like it'd be like a car dealer from Mercedes, a car dealer from Lexus, and a car dealer from Toyota all going to the same barber. So it doesn't really put me in any kind of situation for that.
Right, but then
unless I'm sharing information.
So the yard is an area where everybody congregates during a particular time of the day?
Absolutely.
So when you're in the yard, you have different gangs that hang out in different areas?
Absolutely.
And are those areas always the same? Like you don't walk over to this area because you know it's the ABC gang?
Yep.
And when you're in the yard, you don't have to worry about anyone doing anything to you?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. You still have to worry, but I didn't worry, but you should still.
I mean, you
cautious.
have to be on high alert, I would imagine, but you're the guy that people are saying, oh my God, he gives such a great haircut, so nobody wants to do anything to harm you.
I was untouchable in the compound. I just don't want to say it. So it's like, there was nothing, you were going to lose it's almost like the best barber in the world showed up to the prison and they wanted to hold that, down. It was like them getting rid of the weights. They weren't going to, I got to cut the black's hair. That's never going to happen in the history of anything. Shout out Chauncey Johnson. I was the first person when the black barber left to be able to take on that black crowd. And I was the only person that was able to walk that yard after cutting black hair. I was the only person ever able to walk the yard in New Mexico after cutting the cop's hair. I was the only person that could go in and cut STG's hair. Security Threat Group is the acronym. And I can go right back onto the yard, not share information either or way. I won't tell the inmates about the UA list if your name's on it or not, and I also won't share information from the inmates to the guards.
What's the security? What was that?
STG, Security Threat Group.
And what is that?
That's a group within the institution that monitors, the security of the inmates. Them becoming a threat, or certain gangs becoming too big, or they're just there to secure any kind of threat that could be or is.
And then when you're cutting the hair, how long does it take on average to cut one person's hair?
So now on the street, 30 minutes. In there, I would do the haircut in because I was still doing an elite haircut, about 15 to 18 minutes.
And while you're doing this 15 to 18 minute haircut, you're conversing with the inmate?
Not always. If it's a head gang leader or there's something like that, I'm probably not going to say a whole lot. I'm probably just facilitating his cut. I run a very dominant shop in the sense of you're also not going to sell drugs in my shop. You're not shutting the barber shop down. I hold my ground in the shop. That's how I was able to. You have a lot. Barbershop used to be in prison another kind of safe haven like the church was. When he goes to church, go ahead and take that dope with you too. I mean, so it's like guys stop going to church. Because you'd have to shuffle that sack along. So we made sure the barber shop wasn't like that as well.
Wow.
I made it real good, man. Like I had it real tight and really elite and on all fronts. So it's like, I'm willing to, also fight or do what it needs to take. But, this is what we have. This is our barber shop. Everybody in this prison wants a haircut. So let's treat the barber shop like a sacred environment. And they did that.
It's fascinating.
Do they make appointments to see you, or they just show up?
So what happens is they'll have appointments will be based on the pod. So in other words, Echo Pod will be getting their haircut on a Thursday. Delta Pod will be getting their haircuts on a Friday. And then so you'll rotate through pods. So like maybe one pod has 60 inmates in there. It'll take me 2 days to knock out a pod.
Mm-hmm. What about this? You don't use scissors. They're not allowed to use scissors, I assume.
You are not allowed to use scissors.
What do you do with the clipper? The electric clipper, is that what you use?
Absolutely.
And where do you store that? It's like no one can get
So
at
that
it.
is stored. At the end of the day, what I do is I take a box my like if my equipment was for inmate barbers, it'll say inmate barber, and I'll put all of the equipments that are accounted for that I sign out for when I sign out from the sergeant and I pick up my tools. All of those tools have to come back.
And it's stored with the sergeant's.
Stored in the sergeant's office. Even though I had access to all of it because I had free movement. I lived a different life in prison. I literally, I hate to say it, I had a lot going on. I was able to do things where a lot of other inmates weren't.
So you turned the negative situation and you turned it into a positive situation.
Yes, but I don't want to give myself the credit. I don't know how I really did it, but yes, that is what happened.
And then you used that skill later on to have a wonderful career.
I used that skill later on to have a wonderful career and have wonderful clients. And it's been a blessing. You know, when I got out of prison, I looked for a job. I wanted to work anywhere. I was not able to get a job. My charges are atrocious. I wouldn't give me a job. I'm just telling the truth. I mean, flat out. And so I have what's called extreme accountability. I'm extremely accountable for the actions that I committed. I'm the one that sold pot. I'm the one that robbed the dude. The dude robbed me. I robbed him back, and I did that. When someone robs you, you call the police. You don't rob them back unless you want to go to jail. And so...
Let's start a little earlier. What was your upbringing like?
Upbringing was pretty good, pretty normal. Brother, mother, and father.
So why did you get into this bad situation in the first place?
I think I have so much energy. And I'm such a, it just, I love toting that line. I don't know what it is. It's, I also wanted to be cool and I was a dork. So, you know what I mean? So
you had all this energy and then you had no place to vent it.
You had no place to vent it. And you probably should have had more situational aware parents that, you know, were maybe able to catch on to those keynotes. Like if someone can teach someone to do that, to, you know, signs to look for something, it might be more beneficial. But I don't know. I do also believe that, you know, it's a catch-22. I believe that you are supposed to go down the path you're supposed to go down, but I do believe that we should have the chance to not take such a bad path, you know, with the tools to implement to not go down that. You know, I look at it, I run a program now of mentorship and coaching, and I say the top tier of my program is actually getting a degree, not something that doesn't make sense like a history degree or an innocuous degree like underwater basket weaving, but to get a real degree like a law degree, a doctor, an engineer, you know, go get a real degree that makes real money, go sit down and understand go do math. So I love math. And so I look at it like this. I love math and I love science. And so I look at it like do some basic math and go understand this is what the degree is going to cost. This, and then don't tell me that about your PhD, poor, helpless, and desperate, the one that only makes you $186,000 a year. I make more than you. That's sad. That's sad when the guy, Barber with a 9th grade education makes more than the guy with a degree in quantum computation.
So let's talk about someone who is in high school or maybe in college and getting into trouble. What would you tell them?
You can't tell them anything. I would have the people around them are the ones that need to build that structure. You can't tell them anything. It's just not going to happen. You could come in and tell them, hey, dude, look, show them the worst pictures in the world. It's not going to happen until they're there. So you almost have to, it almost becomes into my dog doesn't piss on the carpet because I've taught it not to. It's going to go right back to show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You're the lump sum of the 5 people you're around. What are the people you're around? How are they compartmentalizing and gearing you to be the best version of yourself? A lot of those times your mother really wasn't shit. Your father wasn't much. And you know, the kid turns out to not be much.
So if they're in the situation, they have bad peers, that's not easy to change your peers, right? It's not easy to make some changes on that.
Why?
What do you mean why?
Well, why is it not easy to change your peers?
Well, show me how you can tell people how to do it.
Redirect your energy. Part of me when I got out, you can't change right away. And so part of me when I got out, I came up with a program and a concept calling redirecting energy. So in other words, I used to get into a lot of fights. if I go somewhere where there's, a bad place like one of these bars or, I don't drink either. So I'm saying redirecting energy and placing guards in the way of knowing who you are and how to deal with yourself, compartmentalizing yourself becomes a big portion in it. So you just have to be able to do those things.
Did it just click, or was it a slow process? I know at one point you were homeless.
It just clicked.
It just clicked.
It clicked when I got out and I said, look, I do not want to sleep on a bunk with another dude. I don't want to share ideology with a guy with a 4th grade education on dope. I want something better. So I said, what, am I going to just change overnight after all the shit that I did? Probably not. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my own quantum computation, and I'm going to redirect my energy for the benefit of myself. So if people just look at a scientific look at it and say, I'm going to redirect this energy, and I'm going to place safety nets in store, like, not going to the bar, not going to certain environments, keeping yourself almost on a short leash for the greater good of you being out. So when someone says, hey man, I want to be out here, I don't want to go back. Well, these are the things that you're going to have to do because you've already been there and you have this type of personality. You're going to have to be on a long-term punishment, but for, it's going to lead you success, money, and everything else.
So was there something that you experienced that caused this huge shift for you? Or was it just the realization that you didn't want to continue to do what you did in the past?
It was me not wanting to do what I did in the past. It was me growing up and me just starting off making the $300 at that barber shop and just wanting to cut hair. I didn't know that it was going to go as far as it went. I had zero clue that I was going to get sponsored by Japanese companies. I was going to fly out to Tokyo. I didn't know any of that.
So let's talk about that journey. So you get out of jail, you get out of prison, and you're kind of waffling around doing different things, not really experiencing any type of success.
Yeah.
And then what happens with the barbering?
And then all of a sudden, one day I don't get on The Ultimate Fighter. I signed up to be on the show The Ultimate Fighter. P.O. wouldn't let me go out of town. End up not going on the show. I'm getting too old. It's not going to happen. I'm realizing it. Diego Sanchez says you're the best barber in Albuquerque. A buddy out of prison, Little Venom from the West, had said, hey, there's a program called DVR. They'll fund anyone if you have a disability. And I thought, well, shit, I should have PTSD by now, but I don't want to go beg a doctor to go do this shit. So I figured out a loophole. Then I said, wow, if you get your medical marijuana license, they put it under PTSD. And you have a 2-second talk with a doctor. And then that led to me getting, because I was absolutely homeless. I was homeless 7 months ago, but I had nothing 5 years ago, not $1 to my name. And so 6 years ago. And so, DVR paid that $18,000 for my barber license. They said, hey, look, if you get straight A's the first semester, we'll cut you another check. We'll keep funding your schooling. And then I kept getting straight A's.
Explain what DVR is.
DVR is a program in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's a division of vocational rehabilitation. And with that program, and shout out to the director of DVR. I'm good friends with everyone over there. So what DVR does is if you have a disability, DVR will help you retain employment. And so how will TJ retain employment? Well, if TJ's legs are cut off, we have jobs that'll hire him. But if TJ wants to be a barber, we'll also pay for his barber license. TJ doesn't have $1 to his name. He's sleeping on the street and he has no money. He's fresh out of prison. And DVR, I love you. DVR did everything for me. And when I graduated and got my master barber license, I dropped the program, did not continue to get funding, and I got my educator license on my own, paid for that on my own, and continued to further the education.
Is DVR a state program or a federal program? Are you
DVR is a state program to my knowledge, but I really don't know. It could be a federal program, but I think it's a state program.
And it's probably in every state, or you're not sure?
I think it's in every state. I know it's in ours for sure, but if it's in your state, look up DVR. If they show up in your state, and look, because the biggest barrier for me was, I started my own program called the Fair Shake Program. I didn't want to tell you it's a nonprofit organization. And what I do is my people, I'm the Malcolm X of my people. And so when my people get out of prison and they want to do the right thing, I welcome them with open arms. And I tell them to come on into the shop. And guess what? I tell them, you want to be a welder? You want to go to college? You want to get a degree in astrophysics? What do you want to do? But if I saw that you did really good in high school, I'll allow you to go to college. If you didn't do so good and you goofed off and you need to get something that's in a trade, I'll help you do that too. And what I do is I get you enrolled into DVR. I go over your probation and parole paperwork with you because most of the guys have a 4th grade education. So when it says contact with felons being a violation, I tell them via smoke signals, no phone calls, no. I want to tell them what contact means because I've seen 100,000 of my guys get violated for that. And I've seen about 50,000 of them, meaning half, really genuinely didn't know what they thought contact really meant physical. That's where I said, no, this is an atrocity. They need to be educated. This is unfair. You should have postings of all the jobs that hire felons in your parole office. Your parole office should not be a place of unwelcoming. It should be a place of welcoming. You should be a public servant. You're also, you should be treating the people good.
We wanted to take a quick break to remind you about our sponsor, findagreatattorney.com. Dealing with the aftermath of an accident or injury can be overwhelming. And the last thing you want to worry about is finding the right lawyer. Findagreatattorney.com simplifies the process by connecting you with one of the top attorneys in your area who specializes in your specific type of case. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, suffered a slip and fall, or experienced medical malpractice, findagreatattorney.com has a network of experienced lawyers ready to help. And remember, their service is completely free, so you can focus on your recovery without worrying about the cost of legal representation. If you or someone you know needs legal assistance, don't hesitate to visit findagreatattorney.com and let them match you with one of the best lawyers in your area for your needs. So talk about barber school, if you will. How long was barber school? Was it classroom? Was it practical? What were you doing?
It was theory and practical, and the barber school was 8 months, and it was 1,500 hours.
And then when you graduated from the barber school, what did you do?
I graduated from the barber school, and the day that I shared this with a few people and said, the day that I graduate from the barber school is the day that I'll never be without a job again. You mark my words. The day that I go into that barber school, the day that I graduate, you're going to see how hard of a worker I am. Guess what? I dare anyone to go on to Sir Men's Salon right now and look it up. I work 7 days a week. I'm the machine. I've worked 7 days a week for 6 years. So, that's what I did.
So you're there 7 days a week.
I'm there 7 days a week.
From when to when?
I'm there from 7 in the morning until 5 o'clock in the evening.
And then how many haircuts will you do in a day on average?
I do about 15 haircuts a day, which yields me about $1,200 a day. I charge $55 plus tax for a haircut.
Wow.
For a regular haircut in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I get more for a haircut than they do here in New York. I challenge any barber. I'm the best barber in the world.
Wow.
Go look it up. It's all public. That's where I say genuinely, it's like you look it up on the shop. It's, I charge $100 for a scissor haircut.
And then do you have barbers working with you?
I have 2 barbers working with me. One barber just opened up her own shop. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Ruby Stone. I can't keep them anymore, guys, because I talk mentorship too much, and I talk about being a business owner, not an employee. I talk about, look, if you're paying $1,200 in booth rent, you could go get your own shop for the same $1,200 and just migrate it. I tell you what an NTTC is. I tell you how to do your taxes. This is all stuff that I taught myself. So when I hear that someone goes to school for business and doesn't turn it into a law degree or doesn't turn it into something special, you're an idiot. And so you don't need it. I have no degree. I have a 9th grade education, and you don't need a business degree to open a business. In fact, you only need a business degree if you're going to help someone else with their business.
And I think that's a great point, because people nowadays, especially kids that go to college, they, like you said, they get these degrees that when they graduate, they're like, I took Middle Eastern studies and I can't find a job. Or I took philosophy and I can't find a job.
Arts.
And you, having a 9th grade education, you have a PhD in kind of like what's going on in the world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you're able to take information and then utilize that information to develop plans, programs, mentorships, and you're able to help so many other people. I think it's brilliant.
Do you want to have a specified subject that gets you paid for that specified subject, or do you want to just make money? And so at the end of the day, I got paid for the specified subject of barbering, but now I've expanded it into aligning yourself in front of the money. So now I just position myself in front of money, and I've done something different. So I built something different with that.
And then the other thing that's a huge point and then I think it's lost on a lot of people is if you do something you love, like you said, you work 7 days a week.
You don't work a day
I
in
don't
your
know
life.
that you're really working 7 days a week. Like you wake up and you go, oh God, it's Sunday morning, I have to go to work. You're like amped up, ready to go because you're creating art on somebody's head. You have people saying, oh my God, thank you so much. You have this feeling of worth, of accomplishment.
I wish I would have brought my clippers to cut your guys. Swear to God, like when you guys see what I do, I'm not joking with you. I'm gonna come back, and when I come back, I'm cutting your hair.
What could you do with Jeff?
I could make Jeff look like $1 million. I'm not joking with you, Jeff. I've already see what I could do with you. I'm not kidding with you.
Really?
I swear on everything. I would completely get rid of some of the top. I'd have it blended into the side. I'd also do a light taper, but keeping a little bit on the side.
Maybe we'll do a road
A
trip.
henna tattoo on the top.
I'll come back for you, man. I'll come back with you and cut your hair for free. I swear to God on everything. Watch. I'm going to be around here. I love New York, guys. I love it here. I'm having a passion for the city. You know what I love about New York and the energy
The
here?
city that never sleeps.
I love never sleeping, and this city is amazing, and they're all grinders in this city. I'm feeling the vibe of this beautiful city. I love you, New York. I swear to God.
So, you know, it's funny. My daughter lives in New York City. I went to law school in New York City. And for me, it is the penultimate place to be. You can find a cuisine from any place on the world in New York City. You can wander around the city at 3:30 in the morning, and it's like electric. Things are going on. Street performers, you know, so much stuff, and so many talented people.
I agree.
So are you going to open a place in New York?
I think I am. I think I really am. I think I'm going to because I just love it here. I want to be in a high rise. I love the concrete jungle theory. I'm a weirdo. I just like it. I love what you just talked about. I stayed at this hotel called the Ritz-Carlton over
God.
in that's where I just came from, over in White Plains, I guess, some area where I'm flying out of, and oh man, I can't wait to book a month there. And so they have a place where you could live. And they have like living quarters. It's really nice. And I say that you can go right out and go right in and walk and get something to eat. And it's a rare experience that I enjoy.
And especially coming from Albuquerque. We talked about this before. I was in Albuquerque a couple of years ago, and it is the smallest state capital I've ever seen. And then you go from Albuquerque, New Mexico to New York City, and it's not even night and day.
It's beautiful
like,
here.
Right.
It's the best place I'd ever been in my life. I was born and raised in California, and guess what? This place is magical here. I love New York. I'm just falling in love with it.
And, you know, it's funny that in New York at Times Square, there's a building there. It's One Times Square. And they used to have a sign there saying, rent in this building here, which is the center of the universe.
Oh, wow.
And when you think about
It
it,
is.
there is so much that goes on in New York City. There's so many different groups of people. There's so much of everything in New York that even if you go to Boston, you go to Philadelphia, you go to Washington, D.C., you go to Los Angeles, you go to Chicago, Dallas, there is nothing that compares to New York City.
Agree. It's beautiful here. I
It's
can't wait to
also
call
a
it home.
it's also a place of excellence. To survive in New York City, you have to be great.
If you can
Because-
make it there,
right.
you can make it anywhere.
Because there's so much competition, and everything is
Agree.
great. And all the people are so smart, intelligent, interesting. I lived there for a couple of years. I was amazed.
And New Yorkers get a bad rap. It's because people say New Yorkers are rude.
I can clear
or-
that up.
Go ahead.
I experienced that whole. I'm going to clear that up because I'm going to go home with that message. When they say they're rude, and my people from my town, I can tell why they would say that because when I walk into the shop and they don't. But I look at it and say they're very busy, educated, hardworking people. Don't have the time to bullshit. And so I really think that they're just very matter of fact and very ready to get business done. That comes across to some people as rude. I really think that's what it is. And I look at it as very special. I look at it like, wow, I don't want to take it as a rude thing. Like when I walked into that shop and they just did it but then they did get to me. I'm usually used to being treated like a king, but I'm like, I need to humble myself and realize who I am and where I am. And this place did that to me. And I'm grateful for that. I got a learning lesson here.
And you know, the other thing is, if you were to ask somebody on the street of New York, you know, if you were in trouble and you needed help, there are so many people that would go out of their way to help you. And I think your point is very valid that everyone is concerned about going from point A to point B. And you're rushing and you've got to get across traffic or you got to catch the bus or you got to get on the train so that people aren't really present like, oh, hi, how are you? And there's so many people in New York City. It's not like you're in Albuquerque where you might run by 5 people that you see and know. It's such a different place. Tell us about, because I'm fascinated about this, your your barbershop and what you do there and how you've become a celebrity.
So how I became and did something is I created something unique. So yes, I am a barber, but I'm also an artist, and I pride myself on just doing art because I wanted to make my own form of art up. And so for me, I created something called a men's salon. The name of my place is SIR, S-I-R. It actually means sir, but it's also an acronym for superior integrity and respect. Nobody knows that. I don't want anyone to, and it's SIR Men's Salon. And what I did was I came up with an idea called bridging the gap between traditional barbering and salon culture. I pictured a man in a two-piece suit showing up. Someone really high-end came in. He might need to have a wash accompanied with his cut. He might want my $1,000 nano-powdered shears to grace his hair. He might want the Dyson blow. You know what I mean? So I invented Men's Salon, an upscale barbershop. I'm embarking on my own path. That's the most interesting for me.
And it's really important, I think, the point that you're making is that you have to differentiate yourself because there are a million barbers out there.
Absolutely.
But there are not a million barbers that have that concept and that have that target audience. And from what I'm hearing, you're really making this a special experience.
Oh, yeah.
And what you do, what I do, what he does, we're all in the same business. We're in the professional service business. And it's all about the experience. And what kind of an experience does somebody have when they go into your shop?
The experience that you have yourself when you walk into my shop, I take your coat's hung up on a coat hanger, I sit you into the nice clean chair, you sit there, I take out a beautiful neck strip, put it right around your neck, I throw the cape on, I face you towards the mirror, and I ask you, what's your vision? What would you like to do? How would you like your hair? And you can start to discuss with me, what you visualize, and then I bring that vision to light.
Wow.
And that's what I do, man. I take you back. I rinse the hair out with 1821 shampoo, $100 a bottle. I bring you back over to the chair. But none of it's just hype. It isn't like 1,000 hot towels. It's literally the best haircut with the best tools and the best environment with the most structure. And you know what? Shout out to Brock with the APD. He's an LT with Albuquerque Police Department. And also shout out to the assistant district attorney who let me out of prison, Joe Robertson. They all come to my shop. And I cut his hair about 4 days ago.
And from what you're talking about, it's experiential. And I'll tell you a quick story. So my son, when he got this great job, said, I'm going to take you to the nicest restaurant in the world. And I said, well, thank you, but how do you know it's the nicest restaurant in the world? He said last year it was rated the #1 restaurant in the world. We went to 11 Madison Park in New York City. Everything about that restaurant was special. When you walked in the revolving door, they had somebody there as soon as you walked in to spray the door and wipe the glass. They set it up so that it was exactly perpendicular to walking in. When you sat down, they had 4 waiters to a table. They put the napkin on your lap.
Details.
They did every single little thing. When they served each course, they would say, these oysters were chosen this morning from our special farm in Long Island. They were picked at the perfect time. The butter was made from the cow's milk that we got from our farm in Hamptons. And they go through this whole story. So before you even eat the food, you're saying, oh my God, this is going to be fantastic. And from what you're saying,
what I do.
Somebody sits down and you say, what is your vision?
Absolutely.
And then you start to, and then if you could
These
tell
are the
them,
scissors I'm going to be using on your
these are
haircut.
the $1,000 scissors.
These are $2,700.
This is special, kind of linen that I'm going to put on you.
And not to hype it. My thing is to educate them and to say, this is what I'm using on you. There is no, it's a $100 bottle of shit. I'm using 1821 on you. This is a $100 bottle. I don't need to tell you the price, but I'm using 1821 on you. I have these scissors here that are made of Damascus. I take my craft to the highest level and I take it very serious. If you're going to a surgeon, you want him to use the lance from 1930s. Go grab the lance that's $20 lance. The barber will tell you, I can do a haircut with any scissors. So can I. It's like, but it's different when you use nano powdered metal.
And the important thing with you is that I don't know, Jeff probably doesn't know about the quality of scissors, but when you tell them about this is the finest metal honed in Damascus, Syria, and this is how it's made, and you tell them all these things, people are like, wow, this is really going to be a special experience.
That's right. I didn't realize that. You just gave me great marketing insight. I pull jewels off of everybody. And I really didn't realize that I was doing that in that sense. And guess what? I am. And that's a very great thing.
And even to look at how you can make it even more special. And it's all about, telling people about what you're going to do, why the scissors are special, why the cotton that you put around their neck is special, why the $100 shampoo is so incredible.
Paraben free. The scissors are so important because I like science and math. I told you again, I'm a geek. And so for me, when I cut a hair follicle with a regular pair of shears or with a pair of clippers, and then I cut them with a pair of my Mizutani scissors, and I look under a microscope, you want to see serrated and shit hair, look at the clippers. You want to see the next serrated and shit hair, look at the other scissors. You want to see that really elite cut, look at Mizutani. And that sets me apart. Every little detail that can set you apart sets you apart. The barber's there at 15 minutes late. I'm there an hour early. He opens at 9, I open at 7. And so I just keep bridging these gaps. And that's what I found to have me win.
So then you started which I think is genius. You started a YouTube channel.
Yes, sir.
And you do something on your YouTube channel that many people would look at and say, what? You cut hair.
Yep.
And you kind of walk the viewer through what it is that you're doing.
Yes.
With the person that's sitting in your chair. And as a result of that, you have gotten how many views on your YouTube channel?
I'm almost up to 3 million views. I'm over 2 million views on YouTube.
Which is a ton of views.
Well over 2 million views.
And these are people that are sitting down to watch you cut hair.
Yeah, and I find there are other barbers. I have now 13,000 followers on Instagram. I never had any. And there are a lot of people from out of the country, and I reach Japan and all these. My YouTube channel reaches out of the country. It's weird. I have some from the U.S., but a lot from these other countries that they're not very good at cutting, so they're probably really gravitating towards my style maybe or whatever it is.
And I think for me, because you showed me one of your videos, and we talked about ASMR.
Yeah.
And my daughter would film these ASMR videos, which is all about sound and, like rubbing the microphone and putting a comb across it. But your videos are very, very soothing. And it's you watch them and you almost become mesmerized or hypnotized. And I can't even explain it, but there's something about the video that I could watch you cut somebody's hair. And then at the end of it, I'm thinking to myself, why did I just watch this? But I would watch another one.
Cool.
Because there's something about that whole process, and you kind of talk through it, and the way you move, and the way you move your hands, and it's fascinating.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's different. I just did it organically. I never, and that's it. But it's time to take my channel to the next level, and you guys are going to assist me in that, and I'm going to hire this guy.
New York City, open a place down at Times Square. You could be, and I don't even know, because they have an area on Fifth Avenue where they have like the Vidal Sassoon salon.
I want to do that. You're making me want to. I'm serious. Watch.
And I don't go down there and get my hair cut, obviously, but I would think they probably charge you $200 or $300 to get your hair cut.
They have to, in the sense of if I'm getting 55, they have to be getting at least 150.
Plus, their rent down there is astronomical. That would be the place for you.
I agree.
And then you know how they have like LA Ink and they have these shows where they have tattoo artists? You could be the guy.
I agree. I agree with you 100%.
What are you doing here?
You know what I'm doing here? Getting the beautiful information from you. That's what I'm doing here. I swear to God on everything. That's what I came to enlighten myself. Assist everyone, but also enlighten myself and see what you guys have to offer. And mentally, you guys are really killing it.
And because the other thing is, it's one thing to be a great stylist. It's a completely different thing to have a very impactful story. And your story is not just kind of interesting and titillating that you went to prison, and people like me would be like, what's prison like? What do you do in prison? And how do you cut hair? And what's going on? Do you use scissors? And all that stuff. But you're like this motivational speaker. You take young, damaged humans and you show them the way.
Oh, yeah.
And you tell them how they can get out from where they are. And I love the fact that you said that you're somebody that's accountable. And there's so many people today that are exactly the opposite. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. It's because of my parents. I should have done this. They didn't do that. But for you, it's like, hey, listen, I screwed up in spades. I paid the piper for what I did.
Yeah.
And now I know that it's up to me to get to do certain things to get to the next level. And I think it's quite remarkable in what you've done. I mean, and with a ninth grade education. So what I'm hearing when I hear you talk is, listen, I have a ninth grade education. I went to prison. I have a record. I had no skill set at one point in time, but I'm doing very, very well right now. And it's really just about putting one foot in front of the other.
And own it, guys. If you have a ninth grade education, own that ninth grade. You did it to yourself. If you committed the crime, go do the time, get it done with, wash it clean, never do it again. Redirect your energy in a positive manner. Quit making excuses, guys. That shit, look, you're going to let the ninth grade education barber outperform you? That's sickening to me. So it's like, it doesn't even make sense. But there's the fire right there. Get it going.
And I think most people would not want to share the fact that they have a ninth grade education.
Agreed.
They'd be like, oh my God, I only have a ninth grade
But I want to
education.
empower these people, and that empowers them.
And I think for you, that is wildly impressive. I'm more impressed that you have just a ninth grade education as opposed to a PhD in business, because what you've done and where you've been and where you're going is remarkable, given the fact that you have a ninth grade education.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate you a lot. You're the first person to ever say anything nice to me like that, or to be able to, no one said anything bad, but I'm saying you're the first person to congratulate me on anything like that. I really appreciate that. That I will never forget.
But for me, I have a law degree, but I can do certain things that somebody with a law degree can't do. You have a ninth grade education, and you've done amazing things. So that just shows everybody, no matter what your challenge is, whether you have one leg or a ninth grade education, or you have some difficulty or some history, you can move beyond that.
Don't be your own barrier. Your disability will be your biggest asset, guys. Everything is mapped out and set. If you start to, use what you've been given. If you have no legs, guess what? You're probably going to be famous for having no legs. So I'm saying utilize it. Take everything as a good, not a negative. Use it as a positive. Look at all this stuff I've been through, and it's all a positive for me, man. I turned it into a positive instead of a negative. I, added another, it's positive. All of it's good.
And, no matter what shitstorm you're experiencing or you're in, there's a reason, there's an education that you can take from that. And I don't know that you would be as successful as you are today if you were not in prison.
I agree.
And when you were in prison, I'm sure it sucked. And I'm sure you're saying, I don't want to be here. But when you got out of prison, it's almost like you have a PhD in life by virtue of spending that 5 years and 8 months in prison. You got a hell of an education in there.
And I also used no drugs and did all this. So that, that stuff, it does, help out a little bit, is that you weren't involved in drugs. And because I could see if you were in drugs, that would be a lot, bigger barrier.
Wow. So as our time together is drawing to a close, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of wrap this up and tell our listeners, what's kind of the secret sauce here? What keeps you going? What brings you joy? What gives you success?
Find something that you love to do and do that thing and do it great. Because if you love to do it, you're probably good at it. And don't be your own barrier, guys. That's it. Don't be your own barrier. Do something you love to do and have some passion behind it.
And how can people contact you?
You can contact me through any social media outlet, YouTube, Instagram. I'm Thomas Baca Barber, THOMAS, and then Baca, BACA, and then Barber.
TJ Baka.
Thomas Baca Barber. My name is TJ.
TJ, it's been a great pleasure meeting you and speaking with you, and thank you so very much.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you.